Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all doing fine. Today, our topic would be a very special topic with regards to modern India. This topic is known as British policy towards the Indian states. So, first, let me explain to you what actually this topic means. So, the Europeans came to India as basically traders, right? Right? They came as traders. 1498, Vasco da Gama was the first European who found the sea route, right? And then gradually many Europeans came in, like for example during the period of Jahangir, Captain William Hawkins, then Sir Thomas Roe came to India, and what they wanted, they were seeking trade privileges. They were actually seeking trade privileges so that they can establish their factories in the coastal parts of India. Why coastal parts? So that their trade becomes very easy, right? So they started out as traders, but ultimately they colonized the whole of India. Not all of them, obviously. The British colonized the whole of India. So through this journey from traders to colonizers, the British interacted with many of the kings which ruled in India, right? Like the Mughals, then the Marathas, right? And many smaller kingdoms like Tipu Sultan, Hyder Ali before Tipu Sultan, of course, and the Nizam of Hyderabad. So, how did the British deal with all these kingdoms? That is our story. Yeah, that is our topic for today. Okay, so of course, we have to understand that this interaction was not always same, right? At first, they came as traders, as subordinates, like they had to seek permission from the various kings like Mughals and the Marathas for doing their business. In the next phase and in the subsequent phases, as the European power increased, their attitude towards the kings also changed, and ultimately there came a time when the Indian kings became subordinate to the British. So we have to see that what all were those processes and what all were those policies which were pursued by the British. Now here we are obviously focusing only on the British because ultimately it was the British who colonized India. All right. So now let us understand this through various phases. Okay. So the first phase we can start from 1745 and we can take this phase till 1765. All right. And this phase can be given the name of, actually this is not a policy but a name of the phase. All right. This we can call the company's struggle for equality. Company's struggle for equality. So from the name itself you can make out that this was the phase where the company had to struggle or fight various wars to become equal to other Indian powers. As of now they are inferior, like they have to take permissions. Even some Indian kings sometimes attacked them. Clear? So this was the struggle for their equality, right? So during this phase, you know what happened? During this phase, actually the British did not start any wars. If you have studied modern India, so you can make out that during these 20 years, many important events took place. Basically, many important wars, such as the Carnatic Wars took place, right? Beside that, Battle of Plassey took place, and most importantly the Battle of Buxar took place. 1757 Plassey, 1764 Buxar, right? I hope you have studied this, right? We already cover these portions earlier. I am right now pursuing a later topic, right? So when in actual the syllabus is going on, for the students these topics are already over, right? Okay, so these were the important events. Even Anglo-Mysore wars were fought, the first Anglo-Mysore war. So now what happened, the company did not start these wars, all right? The Carnatic wars were actually started by a French governor general known as Dupleix, all right? But ultimately the British were successful. They crushed French power in the Carnatic, yeah, in the whole of India. Second, you must also know that the Battle of Plassey was also started by the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj ud Dawla. All right. Even the Battle of Buxar was actually a war of circumstances. The British did not attack as such, but it was a product of the greed of the East India Company, right? The Battle of Buxar was fought with Mir Qasim, the then Nawab of Bengal, right? Even in the first Anglo-Mysore war, it was Hyder Ali who attacked Madras. So the British were just reacting. I am not defending the British, of course, but I am telling the truth. It's what it is logic that during the first phase, the company did not start any war. Basically, they were struggling for equality. All right. So I hope you understood this first point, yeah, this first phase, when the company was much inferior to the Indian powers and it was fighting various wars to gradually become equal to the powers, and ultimately this was achieved, we can say, in 1765. What happened in 1765? A very important event took place. The Battle of Buxar had took place in 1764, and in 1765 the Treaty of Allahabad was signed, right? All right, I will rub this now because I have to explain this in a little detail. So this treaty was Treaty of Allahabad was signed. Actually, there were two treaties. One treaty was signed with Shuja ud Dawla, who was the Nawab of Awadh, and the second treaty was signed with Shah Alam II, who was the Mughal king at that time, right? So what happened with Shuja ud Dawla? The British signed a defensive treaty. This is important to understand the second phase. What is basically a defensive treaty? Like if anyone attacks Awadh, it is the responsibility of the company to protect Awadh. All right. With Shah Alam II, basically the treaty said that the Diwani rights of Bengal were now to be given to the English, were now to be given to the British East India Company. So what are Diwani rights? Basically, they are the rights to collect the revenue from Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. So this now gave the company power to collect revenue, and through this revenue the company grew rich. Bengal was now totally under company's control, and now they were no longer subordinate to the other Indian powers. They had become equal to the Indian powers. I hope you understand. So this ends our first phase. All right. So now let's move on to the second phase. Like, I hope you understand the first phase, which was what? Which was known as, I will just write it down here so later we can revise it together. companies struggle for equality. What is the time? 1745 till 1765. And what happened in 1765? The company now became the master of Bengal, and with this, the company was now a political power. The company now became a political power, and this started the second phase. Clear? This second phase, I will tell you the name, but what this second phase was, first I will tell you the time period. From 1765 to 1765 to 1813. All right. This policy was known as the policy of buffer states. All right, the policy of buffer states. Now, what does this mean? All right, listen. Now, assume this is Bengal. All right, this is Bengal, which the company has recently taken under its control after 1765. Now, Bengal is a very prized possession. In reality, the company did not expect that Bengal will come under its control. So this was a surprise, and Bengal had big resources. Of course, the British destroyed those resources very quickly, but as of now, Bengal was a cash cow. It was just giving money, and the British had to protect this money. And beyond Bengal, there was Awadh. All right, and beyond Awadh, there were various states which were still very powerful, like the Marathas, Mysore, all right, Nizam, all those states. Now these were very powerful states and could have destroyed Bengal, but in order to destroy Bengal, they had to come through Awadh, right? I hope you understand. Awadh is basically the area around Lucknow. Lucknow का जो area है, that is basically what we call Awadh. All right. So now, to protect Bengal, the British had to protect Awadh, right? So that is why I told you that a defensive treaty was signed with the Nawab of Awadh. According to that treaty, the British had the responsibility of protecting Awadh. Okay. So what does this mean? This means that Awadh was created as a buffer state. Awadh was created as a buffer state. So basically this policy, what does it mean? It means protecting the borders of your neighboring kingdom to protect your own kingdom. It's very simple. And this was what we call the second policy, the policy of creating buffer states. All right, I hope you understand. But after some time, this policy also came to an end. But I hope you understand what we call this policy, the policy of creating buffer states. (1765) 1813. Now what happened in 1813? Of course, a new Governor General came to India, and the name of this Governor General was Lord Hastings. All right, what was his name? Lord Hastings. And Lord Hastings now changed the British policy towards the other Indian states. So what had now happened, that the British had become very powerful. They had defeated the Mysoreans, they have defeated Hyder Ali, they had defeated Tipu Sultan, they had defeated the Marathas in the first and the second Anglo-Maratha war. All right, and these states who were formerly dangerous were now basically powerless. So now this was the period from where this policy will be abandoned, and a new policy will be adopted. Now this policy was basically the policy of domination. Now this was the time where the British will start to dominate. All right, the British will start to dominate the Indian states. All right, so let's see what this policy is all about. The third policy. So if you see the time period, that is 1813 till 1857. 1857, you must know, a very important year of our history. The revolt of 1857 took place. All right. So this policy was basically inaugurated by Lord Hastings, not Warren Hastings. Do not get confused. This is only Lord Hastings. All right. Now this policy is known as the policy of subordinate isolation. Policy of subordinate isolation. Now from the name itself we can see the first important word is subordinate. This means that the other states were now subordinate to the British. And the second word is isolation, which means that they are not friendly states. The other states are not friendly states. They are to be isolated. No friendship, no allies, koi mitra nahi hoga. They are all just subordinates and they are to be isolated. All right. In this phase, the treaties which were signed between the British and the other states were not signed based on mutual cooperation. Understand this. No mutual cooperation in this phase. The British dictated the treaties. The British dominated and then dictated the treaties. All right. I hope you understand. This was the time where two concepts became very important. First, imperialism, which means expansion of a kingdom using military power at the cost of the other's empire. And the second concept was paramountcy. This is a very important concept. Basically, paramountcy, the word paramount means highest, sabse ucha. All right. So the British were on their way on becoming the paramount power in India, the highest power in India, which means nobody is above that power. If any other power has to exist, it has to exist below the paramount power, on the diktats of the paramount power, according to the policies established by that paramount power. If not, that other power will not exist. All right. So I hope you understand. The prime example was Lord Hastings' policies towards the Marathas. Actually, the third Anglo-Maratha war took place in 1816, and it was due to Lord Hastings' dominant policy. Lord Hastings were forcing the Marathas to arrest the Pindaris and hand over the Pindaris to the British. When Marathas refused, Lord Hastings dictated that all the treaties which were signed after the second Anglo-Maratha war will be renegotiated and the British will claim more territory from the Marathas. When the Marathas refused, the British attacked the Marathas and defeated them completely. All right. So now you can see the difference. In the first phase, the company was not starting wars. It was reacting to certain circumstances. In the second part, the company was trying to protect what it had achieved. It was trying to protect, not attacking anyone. But now in the third phase, the company was becoming dominant, and by the end of this phase, which is 1857, the company had become the master of India. There was no questioning the company's authority in India. There was no power which could challenge the company's authority in India. All right. So that now brings us to the next time period and another new policy. All right, so we have to understand what happened. In 1857, a great revolt took place in India. All right, we all know the basic story of that revolt. The revolt started with the Sepoy Mutiny against the use of Enfield rifles, although there were many other underlying factors. All right, when I cover this topic, we examine all these points in detail. Okay, but as of now, the mutiny was started by the sepoys. The people joined in. Some of the rulers also joined in, like Rani Lakshmi Bai, Nana Sahib, Tatia Tope, and many others. All right, but 99% of the princely rulers, like the princely states, what they were called later, the local rulers, they remained loyal to the British. The zamindars remained loyal to the British. So ultimately what happened, after the end of the revolt, the company's rule came to an end, and the India, the whole of the country, was now transferred directly under the crown. All right, now the company won't rule India. India would be ruled directly by the British crown, and in reality by the British Parliament, and in reality by the British government, basically Prime Minister and his cabinet. All right, all those things, right? So now the policy changed. Now the policy has completely changed. The British realized that it is of no use to conquer others kingdoms. We should abandon that policy. Specifically the policy which was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, which was known as the doctrine of lapse. He annexed many kingdoms like Jhansi and other pursuing this policy, and this was considered to be one of the main reasons why the revolt happened. Okay, so the government now wanted to nullify this policy and introduce a new policy. The time period for this policy was from 1857 to 1935. And the name given to this policy is the policy of subordinate union. Now the word has changed. Earlier it was isolation, now it is union. Okay, so what is this policy now? The British, the new government, the crown, now simply and very clearly said that no state is now to be annexed. No Indian state which exists as of now will now be annexed. The policy followed by Dalhousie doctrine of lapse will be nullified, which is null and void, and now the British government will not annex any other state. The policy of annexing Indian states, Indian kings, was now null and void. But the British will remain the paramount power. Okay, and as paramount power, every state has to follow the rules and regulations put forward by the British government. All right, but yes, now the rulers are safe. Their kingdom will never be annexed into the British Empire, but they have to follow the rules, laws and regulations put forward by the British. Then only they can survive. And now these came to be known as the princely states. I hope you know that when India became independent, there were almost 600 of these princely states, big and small. All right, so this policy is known as the policy of subordinate union. All right, the British now coexisted with the other Indian states, big or small, as long as the states, the Indian states, accept the fact that the British are the paramount power. All right, so in reality also, after 1857, no kingdom was actually annexed. All right, no kingdom was actually annexed. All right, so this was the policy till 1935. So as we can see, we are in the last phase of the British rule, and after 1935 the policy changed. The final phase was from 1935 till 1947. All right, and this phase came to be known as the policy of equal federation. Okay, this came to be known as what? The policy of equal federation. Now we can see the word federation in it. I hope you understand what is the meaning of the word federation. So what had happened is, in 1935 the British Parliament had passed the Government of India Act 1935. All right, and this act had envisioned the creation of a All India Federation. Okay, this act would create what? The All India Federation. And this federation would include what? First, it would include the British Indian provinces, simple like the provinces, Bombay province, Madras province, United province, central provinces, all those provinces which were directly ruled by the British. Secondly, during the time of Dalhousie's, there were some territories created which were known as the Chief Commissioners provinces. They were like the union territories which we have today. Okay, so the All India Federation was first the British Indian provinces, and secondly the Chief Commissioners provinces. Now the third part of this federation were to be the princely states. Okay, they were to be what? The princely states. Now what does this mean? This simply means that the British now wanted to create an equal federation. They wanted that the princely states should now become equal to all the other provinces of India. They should now come together and form a federation. Okay, they should now become, India should now become a homogeneous entity, not consisting of variable states but equal states. All right, although the participation of the princely states in this was optional, it was not compulsory, and sadly majority of the princely states did not join this federation. As a result, the federal part of the Government of India Act 1935 could never come into force. But nonetheless, the British tried. This was the last phase of the British rule. Many things were happening, and one of the things was they were trying to integrate the princely states into the Indian Union, okay, which they were trying to create. So I hope you have understood all the policies which the British had undertaken towards the other princely states or the other Indian rulers. All right, simply speaking, just a recap. The first we saw was company's struggle for equality, in which company was striving to become equal to the other Indian powers. Second was British had won Bengal, and they were now trying to protect Bengal by creating buffer states. So this was known as what? Policy of creating buffer states. Let me just rub this. We'll have a recap. The third policy we saw was the policy of subordinate isolation, which was 1813 to 1857, in which the British now started to dominate the Indian powers. The treaties which were signed were not based on mutual cooperation, but they were based on domination. Whatever the British said, the rest of the Indian states had to follow, otherwise they would be wiped out. Simple. After the revolt of 1857 came the policy of subordinate union. Under this policy, the British now stopped annexing the Indian empires as long as the empires, the Indian states accepted the fact that the British were the paramount power. If not, I don't know what had happened, because none of them questioned the authority of the British, never. After 1857, there was no revolts as such from the princely states, from the rulers actually. All right. And the last policy during the last phase of the British rule was the policy of equal federation. From 1935 till our independence. In this policy, the British wanted that the princely state should become a part of the whole Indian Union, and they should become on par, yeah, they should become equal to what? To whom? To the rest of the British Indian provinces. I hope you have understood all these policies. This is important. Sometimes these policies are asked in the prelims exams, and sometimes you may need to write them in the mains examination. Sometimes you have to support these answers by writing these things. If you write these terms, your answer becomes very impressive. So I hope you have understood this topic, which we called what? British policies towards the Indian state, and we studied the 5 different policies which were pursued by the British towards the Indian states in various circumstances and in various time periods. So thank you very much. Any doubts, you can always contact me. Thank you.